Hello. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you are new, thank you for tuning in. If you are old and have been around for some time, thank you again for tuning in. Today's structured talk is actually not going to be a structured talk at all. I would say it's because I don't have any reasons to say or any structure to say anything on. But I think that would be an outright lie. Because I actually wanted to speak on the subject of not having anything, like no structure, like chaos. Not just any chaos, but I guess the chaos that comes from a mind or, let's say, no structure at all. The greatest analogy I can think right off the bat to this is actually like trying to hit a target. If you don't have a target to hit, you never hit it. Now, this target is metaphorical for your goals. And your goals are ultimately what you want to achieve, what you want to get out of life. Perhaps it's more specific. It's a narrow goal. It's a goal attributed to work. So your efficiency in the workplace. Or perhaps this goal comes from elsewhere. Maybe it's just a better mental health, what have you, what not, This ideology actually, when I first kind of grounded it in my body, came from Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson highly talks about how people who are aimless in life are ultimately aimless. They don't pick a target to shoot at, and they never hit their mark. How can you expect to have any life satisfaction when you don't create the goals or the boundaries in which satisfaction takes place? You can't wander around life meaninglessly, hoping to find meaning in nothing. You are, in this example, in this way, you are the creator of your purpose. You are the creator of your meaning. You are the order to the chaos. I could keep on going and bring it out further. You are the yin to the yang. You are the dry to the wet. I don't know how further we should take it, but I think you get the point. You are the combatant force against the darkness which can creep into your soul. Just as much as you can be the darkness onto the light of your soul, like you harness literal creative elemental power just by your decision making. Literally just by setting a goal or a target. Like, you have to imagine how profound that power is. You must be able to see how profound structure is as well, and having no structure. Like, you have to visualize and almost write down, think, look at something that's just like chaotic. And then try to find something that's ordered. Like, you could probably kind of see where someone's mind was when something was ordered. Like how somebody put certain books, a certain way. They obviously, maybe they did it by cover art, or maybe they did it by title or by author, like you can kind of see the indications of order. It's like someone's signet, how someone cleans a kitchen, it might be differently. If you put 5 people beside each other and you're like, okay, you do this task, then you get the other person to do the same task, and the other person to do the same task. They might do it differently because everyone's version of what order is different. And that's okay. That's perfectly okay. That's fine. But chaos, the chaotic nature of people, is just inherently unreplicable, if that's even a word. But let's say it in other words. Chaos is something that originates from almost nothing. Chaos is everything and anything. And having that lack of structure sometimes can be a blessing, but oftentimes it leaves us astray trying to search for meaning. It can lead us to Instagram comments, even worse, which I think personally, Facebook comment sections. It's a grimy place. Sometimes, you must admit. It can lead you to scour the internet for meaning. The internet is as vast as, I would say, just as an ocean is. So you can get just as much as lost in the internet as you could stranded out in a boat in the Pacific Ocean. Like, the analogy, and I think what I'm trying to display to you, is that there is so much chaos to be found anywhere, because chaos is not you structuring yourself in a certain way when you lose order. And that's powerful. But I don't think it's the power you want to harness. Let's say you're an evil villain like the Joker, and you want to disrupt order because you hate order. Of course you want chaos. Of course you want no one to know what you're doing or how it's going to happen. Because in that sense, you are the mess to everyone's cleanliness. And I'm not going to go behind the psychology of why people do things such as so, but it's just to state the fact that there is also power in chaos. Let's bring up another example. It's like the power that the dark side has versus the power that the light side has in the movie Star Wars. Chaotic emotions that originate from a dark nature, aka the Sith. That power comes from deep and dark emotions, like very disturbing emotions, which do actually have a lot of power because they are just so volatile in nature. You know, wielding that power is not wielding it, it's almost like unleashing it. Versus the light, where the light is like a honed being who has his potential, I would kindly like to say, ordered in such a way that he has the discipline and patience to use the power respectively, ultimately through training and persistency in his practices, his or her practices. And we're talking all in the sense of Jedi. And we're talking all in the sense in a creative world, you know. Because these are just mere examples for you to bounce off of. Structure is integral to society. And society, a strong society, is one where everybody participates in the structure of it so we can maintain it. A good individual is one who upholds order, not the one who brings about chaos. Even though chaos can feel good because it's going against the norm, it's not always such as so that chaos is the best for yourself, ultimately. Because the destruction of the state of order ultimately is the state of like depression, loneliness, you know, exile, anarchy. If we're talking in the state of not the individual, but of the collective, it's like it's almost anarchy. There are no laws. the things in which you once stood on and actually had grounding in. Now you have no grounding. The backbone that you once had, of many people now fall into this murky, abyss of nothingness. Not to make this sound so cruel and dark, but the consequences of no order are just as much that. And you must be aware of having no order. You must be aware of having the consequences actually fall upon you, because they will. And then soon you'll live a life that is only filled with consequences. And you'll be wondering why has God deemed me so little in his mind? And the answer to that would be, you went down the wrong path because you didn't actually recognize the consequences of your actions of upholding a state which was, let's erase state, actions that were conducive to chaos rather than order. I'm not saying you have to go out and be a Christian, Catholic, anything. But when you live a life without any rules, laws, order, you fall into the trap of none. And none is just as, I would say, as expanse. None is just as much expansive as there is space in the galaxy. I need a coffee because that was a lot of talking. I have a quick drink here. I love coffee. Nothing better than coffee. Like I said, I don't have I don't have my notebook in front of me, even though I got 3 notebooks right here. I have a lot of writing. I have 2 more over there that I didn't show, but I have a lot of writing on this topics in general. But for this talk, I just wanted to kind of be kosher and casual with you and just kind of speak, because I don't have anything in particular to say. There are no real guidelines, for this talk, which is kind of counterintuitive from what I'm preaching, or at least trying to express to you, which is, if you don't have order, you have chaos. And chaos is not necessarily the worst thing, but it's definitely not the end goal. Your goal shouldn't be chaos. It's right now outside, I'm looking out the window, and right now it's snowing. I mean, stuff happens, storms happen, you're not going to be able to hold a perfect state. I don't think there's a country that ever hasn't had, some war happen to it. Maybe Switzerland, but it's every state, everything in this entire earth gets tested. Everything actually has, some force acting against it. You're never ever going to be perfect. You're never ever going to actually have something that stands bulletproof across time, which is invincible. Those stories of such things are only fantasies. And I'm not trying to be so nihilistic, pessimistic here, but the truth is that you have to guard yourself against the attractiveness of a fantasy of things always going your way so perfectly. And once you can reconcile that truth fully and deeply inside of yourself, you can start actually preparing yourself for, I don't like to say reality because that makes it sound so crude and it sounds like a punch in the face when someone says, oh, you have to meet the reality of the situation. It's more like you have to adjust the lens of your creative side of yourself in order to make the world more better, let's say, for ultimately the world that you want to create. Meaning you just have to put different parameters in your code to make the life that you want. And maybe some of it is a little gritty, you're going to have to get down, access your core, do the hard work, but it's not the end all be all for the life that you probably want to live, which might be akin to a fantasy, but it can't actually be a fantasy unless you want to get sucked down the black hole, which does actually exist down the roads of fantasy, which you don't want to go down because there's consequences for acting wrongly. And if you don't think so, then go and act wrongly. And then you'll probably find the consequences when you try to turn your life around. That's what most people say who are drug addicts to young teens who are aspiring to become something in this world. They always say, don't do drugs, don't do this, don't do that. Trust me, I've been down this road. They don't say it for nothing. They say it for a reason. Because they went down the path. And it's much better to heed wisdom that probably is at least 10% true than to distrust it and then go down the path. It's just not wise. I have a book. The black one. Let's not go down the black one. Let's go on this blue one. The white one, I kind of like that one. But the blue one, we want to go down. Let's get a good one. Good reading, good quote for us after a sip of coffee. Cool. Okay. This is a crazy one. Take this with you. At least, if anything. Though I've written this so long ago that I don't know what we're going to extract from this, but bear with me as I divert my gaze down and I read here. And I quote, "Being realistic is the most common path to mediocrity." Will Smith. End of quote. Well, end of quote. Written by Will Smith. Have you ever said the words, "Well, I'm only being realistic"? Those words commonly come up in day-to-day conversations. Being realistic is to say that this is how it is and will be, which is absurd because things always change. Being realistic is a form of limiting beliefs as well. When you limit the world by saying this is as real as the world gets, you limit your ability to imagine. Most things that exist today did not exist 20 years ago. The people who invent new items, businesses, and more do not settle for what is real. They expand their scope of view to what could be. Direct your focus on what you can imagine. Then from your imaginative space, you can bring forth words, maybe even a product or food, if you are cooking. What is more real than that? There is no limits if you are willing to believe that. You'll only run into people who are stuck in believing they need to feel and see for something to be real. Those confused people just do not get the memo, and that is okay. Just don't go believing they know what is real. It is just simply doesn't exist yet. That's the end of the writing. And I think that's so profound because I was talking about it earlier. Being realistic, like being real, How crude is that? How crude is saying, being real? not to speak any more bitterness onto the saying, which I feel like I'm emanating a little bit. Personally, I've limited myself so much from being real. So much so that I've lacked the actual creative capacity from broadening my scope, broadening my beliefs. Perhaps not core beliefs, but beliefs about how things can be. And ultimately, that did shape my life to be something that's more open and more interactive with the world, instead of like having a almost like a mental dictionary of what is real. It's like this coffee cup can only come in this size, this shape. And the other day I saw a coffee cup of someone who was holding like a coffee mug, and it was like the shape of a desert eagle, you know? And I was like, what? No, the coffee cup's supposed to look like this. You know? So it's just like, there's one example of something that, you know, we labeled as real. This is a real coffee mug. And someone turned it upside on its head and it's like, no, I'm going to be more creative and, you know, do something cool. And that's what I ultimately would like, you know, a lot of people to expand their minds on. It's like, we settle for something to be real in order to make everyone have this sort of order, because it is order. So we all can agree that this thing is real and that nothing else is, you know, like nothing else can be that, you know. You know, the table can't not also be a chair, you know. The table has to be a table because things set on top of it. Of course, there's that order of classification, which keeps the state, you know, from not mislabeling everything, which is okay and understandable. But on the same spectrum, if we keep so strongly to what we know is real and we don't expand outwards to the more, let's say, creative ether of the world, which does exist on a different, separate level than our societal level, and we can reach into that pit of, I would say, vastness, space of creativity, extract things out of it, and bring it to our ordered societal state. And the truth is, most people will be so afraid to go out into the creative expanse of the world that they will never be able to truly see past the veil of what society has labeled as real and what truly is out there for, you know, people to create. And it's almost a crime to have seen or known people who just haven't, you know, gone past that limit of creativity. And honestly, it's so hard to tell, because how are you supposed to extract that, you know, truth from someone? You could probably tell from the personality of this, yada, 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 but without straying too far from the point. Being real is just, it's a lazy way. It's conforming, to mediocrity. And especially if you're, you know, an aspiring artist, you know, someone who wants to be creative, you know, an artist, let's say, like you want to create something, you know, that someone hasn't, you know, made yet, or something deeply personal to you, you know, an extraction of your soul, you know, expression of it. In order to extract that, you know, uniqueness of your own individuality, you really have to, you know, go past what people see as real, and then go into that deep veiled realm of creativity and wonder, and almost like a heaven-like existence. And you will find it, and you can find it. It's definitely there. It's just you have to go past, you know, the imaginary bounds of the world. I would dare say that you almost have to dip into a little bit of the chaos of the world, because things aren't structured there in that state, in that space. But as long as you have your own, you know, body in line, you have your own personal order in line, and you're not going to get lost in the creativity process, then maybe you'll be able to make something out of it. And that would be beautiful. And I would hope that definitely for you. Sorry, I didn't mean to blow on the mic. But I was just not expecting that. I was not expecting to read that, and that we have had spoken it prior. Like, whoa. Talk about synchronicity. Talk about magic, let's say. If I dare say, but I dare say no more. I've been yapping your ear off for a while, and honestly, I have to go make another cup of coffee because talking like this can get a little exhausting. We're going for 25 minutes now. That's a lot of minutes. I'm not going to ask you to watch again to extract what you need to know to bring out, out of this video. And I definitely don't want you to take notes on what I'm saying or have to feel so inclined to have to, burden yourself with trying to adhere to what I say. My only wish from what you truly take out of this video is just a new sense of self, or at least a new opportunity for possibility that you could probably actually achieve if you allowed yourself to achieve greater heights than probably what you already have right now. Because ultimately, my whole goal of, speaking and, channeling, let's say, making a YouTube channel is to broaden your perspective of the world just at least 1% so you can gain some newfound power to exist in this world solely, with your own intuitive wisdom. Because at the end of the day, you are the well of knowledge which literally can quell all chaos upon a single thought, a single prayer. You are, if you delve in the religious spectrums, you are the bodhisattva. You are the Jesus, the follower. Perhaps you are Jesus embodied, perfected state. You are just as one as much as with the kami as the kami are with you. You are everything that you need. You are your own blood. You breathe air in with your lungs. You don't need to live with an IV into Instagram or Threads, dare say, or anything else. As much as we feel inclined to, as I would like to say for a Gen Zer, I do see a lot of, let's say, fellow youngins. That was cringy. Hooked up to social media. But the ultimate goal is not to have to inject yourself with enough media to feel alive. I think the end goal ultimately is the target that everyone wants to hit is a foreign safety in your own knowingness of the world. To know just enough to see just enough to know that no matter what happens, you'll make it through whatever's happening. And you can't quell the power of that because it ultimately will always come from inside of yourself. And obviously, I'm going to have to talk about a lot of things for someone to get to that state. But if you take actions, at least now, today, you're going to get closer rather than farther. An attempt is an attempt, but no attempt is no attempt. How can you get closer to nirvana if you don't take any steps to it? Sometimes the closest step to nirvana is only a thought. I leave that with you. Until next time. Bye.